Let's talk about how to find people who need care, especially those who would benefit from a support team if you were trying to develop a support team for them. And my hunch is that you probably already have someone that you're thinking of if you're coming to here to learn about support teams, but maybe not. So let's think about it some together. One of the first areas, if I'm going to just think about with a group, how are we going to find people who might need care or find a person who might need extra support, practical, emotional, spiritual support? And one of the areas I think about and encourage others to think about are people with chronic illnesses. And these could be any number of things, from persons who maybe have some dementia, Alzheimer's or other kinds of dementia, people who have cancer or different types of cancer, could be diabetes. Field I used to work in is, as a chaplain, was working with people with HIV disease, which is now considered more of a chronic disease than a terminal one if people take their medicines and go to the doctor. Other ones, chronic kinds of illnesses are mental health or mental illness areas, and then I think of pulmonary or breathing, lung disease, and that sort of thing. And so chronic illnesses, these are just some. There are many others you could think of, but if I'm thinking about people who need care, these are people who have ongoing illnesses. Boy, they could really benefit usually from a support team. So that's one way to think about how to find people who need a support team. Some people might ask, well, why do people need teams? In other words, why don't their families take care of them? So the question is, why support teams? And how I would answer that is, in this day and time, many people have family, but they are geographically not close by. So family is far away, maybe several towns over, another county, maybe another state, maybe even another country. But family is more dispersed geographically these days in the United States, and so we don't always have somebody there who can just pick up and support or care for people's needs completely. A second one is that many people don't have family at all. Maybe they're no longer living. Maybe the relationship is strained for a variety of reasons. We'll just put down no family available. And that could also be because other family members are working at two jobs, or the husband and wife are working at two jobs, and so they're not available to help a sibling or a parent, or can't take that time off from work. And then there are other people who are just plain isolated, just don't have friends as well as family. So a person is isolated. And so these are people who are just perfect for support teams in terms of need that's there. And so a couple of ways to look at why people need support teams, or how do we find them. We think about people who have some of these chronic illnesses, and then we also think about people who just don't have the support at home that they need. So people who need care are very similar to a video that we will do on how do you find people who serve on teams. Actually, it's in some of the same areas when we think about where do we find people who need a support team. One of the first things I would say is think about friends that you have. And friends are the folks who have needs that we know about them because we're in touch with them, and we hear about a different diagnosis or problem, or they go in the hospital. A second area has to do with our second area to think about are people we work with. People we work with, we'll call them work colleagues, co-workers, maybe is an easier term to really talk about, co-workers. And a co-worker is, I once developed a couple of teams for people I used to work with because their parent was aging and they were having difficulty, and so some of us on our job would go before work or at our lunch break or in the evenings or on weekends and help with this co-worker's parent who was aging. And it was a very valuable learning experience. In addition to that, I think about where do we find people who need care? Just think about your neighbors. Neighbors. And that's another place to find people who need support teams. A fourth area that I think about has to do with people, if you're a part of a faith community or some other group that you regularly get with, and we'll say faith community. And then finally, one last one, because I am a chaplain who works in a hospital, I think about people who obviously are in the hospital right now. And one of the ways you could do this, even if you don't work in a hospital, is go through a volunteer department at a hospital, go through their orientation, become a volunteer there, and work with them to identify people who could really benefit from a support team. And you could be involved in a variety of ways. Same sort of thing for nursing homes and other kinds of institutions. So, when I think about all these areas, I'm sure you can come up with somebody who needs care, whether they are friends or whether they are co-workers or neighbors or a member of your faith community or somebody that you know who's in a hospital or a nursing home.